But whatever you do, don't stereotype. Don't elevate your other race and then your blackness you minimize. Because black is brilliance. Black is excellence. Black is not lazy. Black is not violent. Black is beautiful. You better learn that while you're young. Give yourselves a hand. Give yourselves a hand.
Okay, all right.
Brown, Uncle Keith here, African Heritage Emerging Student Leaders Institute. We about 1,000 deep in here, y'all. African Heritage Inc., Green Bay, Wisconsin. Y'all know what time it is.
The man who sits in front of you today, first of all, before my name is even mentioned, he's a servant leader. First of all, I'm a servant leader. My name, while it is essential, because it is what I'm known by, it is what I'm called. What I do is even more important than my name. So I'm a servant leader. I'm a man of God. I'm a husband. I'm a father. And I'm an uncle to millions across the globe, known as Keith L. Brown, Mr. Impossible, Uncle Keith, the one who has said G-O-O-D-J-O-B, good job, for years. I'm the man who's resilient. I'm the man who's resilient. A former special ed student who was labeled at risk, who is now operating in excellence and resilience. I'm a black man. I'm unapologetically black. I'm not a man who happens to be black. I'm a black man who operates in black skin many times in a white world.
I mean, you know, there are people like those individuals in the back. They're not our family. They're like water, but they help us to flow. Come on now. They help us to flow. Because this is the key right here. Somebody say compassion. Somebody say compassion.
Well, growing up being labeled a special ed student, being labeled one who was at risk, I was very conscious of that because I would be in classes of 25, 35, and then I'd be removed and placed in classes of 5. And I knew at that point that I was small and I was black and I was different, because I was removed from what was seen as normal and I was placed in an abnormal environment. Ironically, I thrived in the abnormal environment because then I could talk a lot, because that's one of the reasons I was labeled, because they said I talked too much and I wanted to give all the answers. Ironically, that is why I am booked as a speaker across the globe, because I'm talkative and I want to give solutions and all the answers. But I knew early on that I was different, but I was still surrounded by a village that loved me, that taught me I was not special ed, but I was special. I was not at risk, but I should take risks. And even though to this day that lingers in my mind, some of that inadequacy, I still remember that during those times, I was the one who inspired even my classmates and my peers. Even though I was labeled special ed, I was the one in high school who was doing Martin Luther King speeches year-round in assemblies. Even though I was labeled special ed, I was voted most likely to succeed in my high school class. Shout out to Springfield Gardens High School in Jamaica, New York. So even labeled special ed, I won a district-wide speak out contest. I was in a district-wide spelling bee. And so, although I was called inadequate by the system, I still excelled through my gift of oratory. And so I always tell parents and others that if your child has been labeled anything, they're not dumb, they're not stupid, they are brilliant. We just have to tap into their gift.
When you wake up in the morning and you stand to your feet, this is what y'all need to start practicing. When you wake up in the morning and you stand to your feet, start clapping. Right? Just you. And some people say, why would I do that? You need to start clapping because it might be the only standing ovation you receive all day.
I'm very intentional when I target young people because I was targeted as a young person. I was targeted growing up in Jamaica, New York by the likes of a Dr. Gerald Dees, who was a nationally famous physician, and he was my mentor at Springfield Gardens United Methodist Church. I mean, I can recall as a youth, Dr. Gerald Dees would come and he would come in the wintertime and have on no coat. And we would say, Dr. Dees, why don't you have on a coat? And he said, because I wanted those who are less fortunate. I want to know how they feel like. I want to know what they felt. And so Dr. Dees was my mentor. I had a Judge Kellum, a black judge, who was one of my mentors, who also targeted the youth. Whitfield Sims Jr., who was my theater director. He was an acclaimed theater director at the Black Spectrum Theater Company. He targeted me. And even as a young person, I remember being on the front lines of picketing stores that wouldn't hire black youth and others that were very racist and wanted to keep black people oppressed, suppressed, repressed, and depressed. And so I started out as an educator. That's where I started. My first profession was as an educator and working with federal TRIO programs targeting young people. So it was only natural when I stepped out on faith in 2000 to leave one classroom in one school to speak around the globe. It was very natural for me to target the population that needed it the most. And I saw that as young people. And so young people keep me young. They keep me vibrant. They keep me connected. And I do understand that when I target young people, when I inspire young people, when I empower young people, I am doing my part to build legacy, global legacy. So it's an easy choice. It was an easy choice for me to target young people because at this point in their lives, the pen is now just coming into their hands. You know, yes, we write our story, but the pen goes in their hands as children and young people. And I can help them shape their own stories, which are often masterpieces that many read through them. And so I'm very intentional about targeting young people. It was not an accident. This is where I feel most at home, working with our youth and working with our families, many of whom are underrepresented.
G-O-O-D-J-O-B. Thank you so very much. Everybody, scream!
The first time I used the G-O-O-D-J-O-B, good job, was actually hearing it from the cheerleading squad at East Lawrence High School, a high school in Middle Georgia, where I had my first teaching position. The cheerleaders would do that chant. And so I learned that chant, and they had a certain cadence to it. And later on, when I stepped out on faith, one of my good friends and partners, my co-conspirator in the struggle to uplift young people, his name is J.R. Henderson, affectionately known as Rock, my fraternity brother. And he had the Freedom School, and they did the G-O-O-D-J-O-B, good job. And so I adopted it, and I've been using it for well close to 3 decades now. And so that's why I'm known by that good job. So I didn't make it up, but I did make it popular on a global level. In terms of not impossible, I'm possible, there was a slogan that said, or a quote that said, it's not impossible. The word itself says I'm possible. So I took it a little further and I said, not impossible, I'm possible. And I remember I used that with youth in the Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia. I would always say, not impossible, I'm possible. And from there, I branched out and I took that to audiences all over the world. And then young people started calling me Mr. I'm Possible. So the young people actually gave me the name Mr. I'm Possible. Once again, I was intentional about speaking life into young people, and the young people spoke life into me because they stopped calling me Mr. Brown. They started calling me Mr. I'm Possible. And so from there, the name just stuck, and that's who I'm known as globally. And so that not impossible, because so many of us have grown up with people telling us our dreams are impossible, our goals are impossible, our hopes are impossible. And I always say, if you look at the word impossible, and you take something little as an apostrophe, and you take that little apostrophe and you put it between the I and the M, then impossible becomes what? I'm possible. So I always tell audiences around the world, sometimes it's the little things that count. The little things that will take you from impossible to I'm possible. The little things that will take you from failure to success. The little things that will take you from chaos to peace of mind. So every day, every audience, I say, it's not impossible, it's I'm possible. And the extension of that is I have 2 options. Either I'm gonna make it or I'm gonna make it.
What's up, kid? How you feeling, man? Man, I am empowered, not devoured. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thought of that yourself? Yeah. My man. My name is Keith. Yeah. A motivator. Yeah. A stimulator. Yeah. I got that charm. Yeah. I got that wit. Yeah. And now it's time. Yeah. To get down with it. Yeah. I got that wit. Yeah. I got that charm. Yeah. And you can find me. Yeah. KeithLBrown.com. Yeah. You've been up all night working on that.
When I'm on game shows, like I've been on Family Feud, for example, and Celebrity Name Game, and even a stint on Showtime at the Apollo. When I'm on game shows and shows of that nature, where I'm not directly a speaker, I'm a participant. I might be, one of the players of this particular game. I still bring Mr. Impossible to that platform. So I'm still going to inspire. So when I was inspiring Steve Harvey on Family Feud, I had the opportunity to inspire the host on Celebrity Name Game and inspire the studio audience, because all the game shows have a studio audience. So I'm still able to bring the same persona, the same enthusiasm, the same personality, the same motivation and inspiration, because motivation is not just what I do, it's who I am. And a lot of times you hear people say, what I do is different from who I am. Well, it's different with me. What I do is who I am. And that starts in my own home. That starts in my own home, to be a motivator in my home. And there are times when I'm not a motivator in my home and I have to do better. But there are times that I have to do better in my purpose as well. So I'm always growing. I'm always ever evolving. I'm always connecting, because I understand even when I fall short as a human being, even when I fall short, I have to sharpen my skills. I have to study. I have to research. I have to stay current. I have to reinvent myself, because at the end of the day, it's all about connection. And if you're not connecting, you're just saying a bunch of words. And if you're just saying a bunch of words, that's a bunch of hot air. And if it's a bunch of hot air, it's breath that's being lost. And one of our most precious commodities is the ability to breathe. And so when I breathe, I want to make sure whatever I'm putting out in the universe, whether it's on Family Feud, Celebrity Name Game, or at a college and university, or in the entertainment industry or corporate America, whatever I'm saying, I want it to be able to change lives for the better. And if I'm not doing that, then I need to go hide under a rock, because I have no purpose.
Let's talk about your book movement. Talk is expensive.
Oh, yes, it is.
Ooh, so what made you pen this book, and tell us, what does that mean?
Because all of our lives, we've been taught that talk is cheap. But no, talk is not cheap, it's expensive. People say actions speak louder than words, and that's true, but it's the words that move people to action. See, what you got to realize, when people speak negatively to you, that is expensive, because there are times when people speak negative in your life and you get halted and you get stunted and your growth is stunted and you never maximize your vision and your purpose. So that's expensive, because something is lost in the universe. But when people speak life into you, it's also expensive, because then you're able to create impact, influence, income, and maximize your destiny. One tip I would say to being a good leader is positioning yourself that those who follow you because they want to and not because they have to. Because if they have to, they may be resistant. And if they only follow you because they have to, that means there's something about you that might be dictatorial, or there's something about you where you're creating a culture of fear. But when individuals follow you because they have a desire to, that means you're inspiring them. And most importantly, as a leader, not only should you inspire, you should empower. For you see, to give someone permission, as we give our children, when you give your children permission, you're saying, oh yes, you can do that. But when you empower them, you give them the authority to be great. So as a leader, I always want to empower individuals to be great, to reach the highest level, to reach their purpose. And I want them to shine. I would rather my team shines before I do. And that's why before I do anything at speeches, I always introduce my team, because my team is more important than I am as a leader. At the end of the day, I'm just the face I'm just the face of the operation, but my team, those who follow me, they are the heart of the operation. So as a leader, I should always be a servant leader that is willing to be a team player and willing to listen to those who are following me. For when you do that, you operate in a spirit of humility. And humility is not thinking less of yourself. Humility is thinking of yourself less often. And I believe great leaders should do that. Don't think less of yourself. Just think of yourself less often. So 2024 will be a year of exponential growth. Things that have never happened before. I'm going to name, claim, and frame they will happen in 2024. And I will be the catalyst for that because God has already put that on the inside. All I have to do is execute. Like I told some young people recently, either you execute or you'll be executed. So in 2024, yes, I'm going to bring more motivation. I'm going to bring more inspiration, more elevation, more education, and more revelation. But at the end of the day, I have to bring more implementation. For without implementation, then nothing else matters. Hey, I'm Keith L. Brown, Mr. I'm Possible, and you are watching Profile.